What's up everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So you probably have some time off from work or from school for the holidays, and I wanted to show you a really cool recipe that I've never made before, but it looks extremely good. So today I'm going to show you how to make sticky buns, which is a very close relative to cinnamon rolls. It's pretty much the exact same on the inside, but instead of having that nice white icing on top, it's going to have kind of a sticky glaze with pecans in it. It sounds really good, and I want to give this a shot, so follow along with me and we'll dive into this recipe. If you are looking for something that is warm, gooey, sweet, and savory all in one fluffy bite, you've come to the right place. Into a large heat-proof mug, I have combined 1/3 cup of water and 3/4 cup of milk, and I've heated this up to a lukewarm temperature. And I'm adding in 1 pack of active dry yeast, roughly 5 grams, giving this a mix, and be sure your liquid isn't too hot or it will kill the yeast. Now I'm going to be adding in 3 tablespoons of sugar. I'm using sugar in the raw, but feel free to use granulated sugar. Give this a stir and let it sit for about 10 minutes. Now I'm using a stand mixer here, but you can definitely do this by hand. It's just going to take some more elbow grease. I'm adding all of my mixture directly into my stand mixer bowl. Here I'm using 3 cups of bread flour. You can use all-purpose flour mixed with half a teaspoon of salt, and we're just going to add this in 3 increments as we slowly mix and hydrate our flour. If we added all of this in at once, it would just turn into a big shaggy mess, and it kind of will be anyways, but we're going to prevent this as much as possible. So just keep repeating this until all of your flour has been added. Alright, so for your butter, you're going to want to use some sort of Gucci or expensive butter here. And Kerrygold is a gold standard, no pun intended. So here I'm adding 1/3 of a cup of this melted Kerrygold butter. And then I'm simply just going to knead this on medium, and be sure your stand mixer is locked until this dough comes together nicely and starts to cling the edges of the bowl. Now, because this dough isn't an enriched dough, meaning it has butter, it's not going to be as stretchy as, say, as a pizza dough. So that's perfectly fine. So go ahead and grease a bowl and plop your dough down into it. Now I'm simply going to cover this and let it sit for 30 minutes to an hour, or until doubled in size and nice and gassed up. But go ahead and knock a lot of this air out by punching it. Next we need to make our topping with 6 tablespoons of melted butter, a 1/4 cup of dark corn syrup, not high fructose, and add 2 tablespoons of water to this. Next, a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar and a 1/2 cup of packed dark brown sugar. Simply give this a whisk. Be sure to break down those clumps of brown sugar. And finally, 5 ounces of pecans. I found these glazed pecans at the grocery store, and they come in a perfect 5-ounce bag, and they were absolutely phenomenal on the top. Now you can obviously just use roasted pecans, that's perfectly fine, but I think that these already being glazed adds another level of intensity and sweetness to the top of this, and I really did like it. So go ahead and add that to your topping mixture and go ahead and whisk all of that stuff together. And this right here is probably one of the most beautiful things that you will ever see in your lifetime. Alright, here I messed up and used a 9x9 baking sheet. You need to use at least a 9x13 and simply just dump your topping into the bottom. I paid the price of having to clean out my oven the next day, so be sure you get one a little bit bigger than this. For the cinnamon roll filling, you simply need 3/4 of a cup of packed brown sugar and a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, 1 tablespoon of cinnamon, and finally a 1/4 cup of softened butter. You really want this to be nice and fully soft, so let it sit out, and that's going to help this come together nicely. So I originally used a whisk here, but a spatula would definitely work better to fold this through. And even with this butter fully softened, I found this not to be very spreadable, so I did add about a tablespoon of water to this and mixed it in, and it made it much more spreadable, as you can see here. Now all of our ingredients are ready, so we can go ahead and lightly flour our work surface, and then just plop your dough down. You can go ahead and flip this over. This is going to get flour on both sides, making this easier to work with. Go ahead and pinch out any of the gas, little air bubbles. And then simply roll this out until it's about a 1/4 inch thick, and you want this to be a nice rectangular shape. I'm not going to give you specific measurements because it's going to vary probably, but just keep it about a 1/4 of an inch thick. And then I like to spoon my filling in quarters, so I like to just divide it into 4 inside the bowl, scoop that out, and then set it onto the 4 sections of dough like you see here. Upon using a spatula, I found using the good old mitts here to spread this out much easier because the heat from your hand is going to melt the butter a little bit, so it just helps. So after you have this done, you just want to tightly roll all of this up. Make sure you roll it up as tightly as possible, leaving the seam on the bottom, and then just cut about 1.5 inches or 2 inches off each end, because these are obviously going to be a little bit of the ugly pieces. Then simply cut one round in the middle, because you want to have 9 of these total. So there's your one round, and then from here you can cut both sides into 4. So to do this, you just have to cut one side in half, and then cut those 2 halves into halves. So you're essentially making 4 on each side of that original one roll that you cut. And that's the easiest way I can give you to do this. They're not perfectly even, but it doesn't really matter. So now we're just going to stack all of these into our baking sheet, and we are good to go. We just have to do one final proof to make sure these are nice and puffy. So I'm going to cover this with a damp towel for 45 minutes, and there they are. They're ready to go into an oven. So you're going to bake these on 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 20 minutes uncovered, and then 10 to 15 minutes covered. And then the best way to get these out is to set a cutting board on top, flip these bad boys over, and then look at this, guys. This is the most amazing thing. This is the best part of this entire process. Lifting the lid off and just seeing that nice pecan glaze fall off the edges. Definitely one of the best things I've ever eaten, and you guys really need to get out here and make this, because have you truly lived life if you haven't had a homemade sticky bun? I mean, look at these things. I'll let the video speak for itself. Alright guys, and that is it. My camera battery did die while I was showing you me eating this. So you saw how good these things look, but normally whenever I make something like this, I'm not going to eat a lot of it, because a lot of the stuff that I make on this channel is not necessarily the best thing for you, but it does taste really good. These, however, I cannot control myself. I ate 4 of the 9, so that lets you know how good these are. I'm going to go ahead and put these on the top 3 best things that I've made on this channel thus far, and I have made over 50 videos through this entire process, so that lets you know something. It's definitely going to take some time, and it's going to be a big mess to clean up, but it's definitely worth it. So if you are going to make anything off of my channel, this is going to be a top 3 thus far, so I highly recommend it. It's extremely good. You can't get anything like it at the store. I've made homemade cinnamon rolls before, and something about these is just absolutely amazing. So I will definitely be making this again and keep it in my arsenal of recipes. So take that as you will. I hope you all learned something and enjoyed this. If you did, please drop a like on it. Consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't already, because I'm definitely going to be making some more videos here. I did just get some mason jars, so I will be making some fermentation videos very soon. That's actually going to be a series that I'm starting, so I'm super excited for that. I've got a lot of stuff coming for this channel, and I'm glad to have you here with me. So stick around, and I will see you all on the next one.